This is the news on NTA International. I am Lami Ali with the headlines. As Muslims begin month-long fast, President Buhari sends best wishes to adherents in Nigeria and the world over. Federal government to take decisive action against errant transport operators inaugurates joint technical team on emergency response to COVID-19. Plus, United Nations Secretary General calls for collaboration of all nations in confronting shared threats like COVID-19. Thank you for joining us. Following the sighting of the Ramadan crescent, President Muhammadu Buhari sends his best wishes to Muslims in the country and all over the world as they begin this year's month-long fast. A statement from the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, quoted the President congratulating all Muslims as they commence this year's Ramadan fast, which is depicted by self-denial, universal brotherhood, austerity and helping relatives and needy people, said the President. President Buhari described Ramadan 2020 as a challenge as it is coming at a period of the global pandemic which has spread to virtually all countries, advising citizens to avoid large gatherings and have their prayers and fasts individually or with family at home. President Buhari urged Muslims to endure and not to use coronavirus as an excuse not to participate in the Ramadan fast unless such abstention is warranted by the excuses clearly outlined by health and religious authorities. Now, Muslim faithful have begun the annual 30-day Ramadan fast, but this year they are witnessing a Ramadan with a difference. In this report, Correspondent Mustapha highlights the peculiarities in this Ramadan under lockdown.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Ramadan, the ninth month of the Islamic calendar, is observed by Muslim faithful with fasting as one of the 5 pillars of Islam. For the Senate President Ahmed Lawan, this year's Ramadan came at a most unusual time when mankind is contending with an existential threat in the form of the deadly COVID-19 that has shut down the economy and entire social life throughout the world. While urging Muslims to abide by the stipulated guidelines, the Senate President assured them of the government intervention to their plight. The Speaker, House of Representatives Femi Gbajabiamila, has also congratulated.
That report was on messages of the Ramadan from personalities in Nigeria. Now, to our previous story, Muslims across the world have begun the annual 30-day Ramadan fast, but this year they are witnessing a Ramadan with a difference. In this report, Correspondent Mustapha highlights the peculiarities in this Ramadan under lockdown.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
A call to prayer from the Islam holiest temple, the Grand Mosque in Saudi Arabia. It went wide and many heard it, but only the ranking leaders could yield to the call. Not even the usual hundreds of thousands of people who come circumambulating the cube-shaped Kaaba are around. It's a situation the global reality has dawned on places of worship around the world. A reality brought closer home. The National Mosque, Abuja, is deserted. It beats imagination, but that is the reality staring at Muslims in the face as this year's Ramadan fast begins.
Ramadan is prescribed upon all the believers, Muslims, the followers of the Prophet Muhammad, as it was prescribed upon those people before Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
As sacred and expected as the holy month is, the usual excitement with which it is received is being corroded by coronavirus. Following suspension of Jumat services, public lectures, common breaking of fast and other gatherings are part of what Muslims would miss in this Ramadan. It is an imminent caution that His Eminence Sultan of Sokoto Alhaji Muhammad Saad Abubakar has declared on the platform of Jamaatul Nasirul Islam. Similarly, the call for caution is unfortunately overwhelming cause for religious obligation, and the search for solution to the common enemy has beclouded the search for the crescent. Though the crescent of Ramadan is cited, signaling the beginning of this year's fasting, a Ramadan with difference, as the feasting in group to unite the Ummah will not take place. The voluntary prayers after the break of fast will not be there. The night prayers to seek emancipation from hell will not be there. The seclusion in the last 10 days of the month in search of the night of majesty will not be there. One thing will, however, be there: faith and believe that Allah will accept whatever is done in His cause, as He alone has the power to heal the world of a pandemic that has held it captive. In Abuja, Mustapha and Wahab, NTA News.
Muslims the world over have commenced the 30 days Ramadan fast following the sighting of the moon. We have in the studio Chief Imam, FOMWAN National Headquarters, Dr. BASHIR ABDULLAHI ISMAIL. Glad to have you join us on the news. Glad to have you join us on the news, Mr. Ismail.
Good evening and wishing you all the best.
Now, what is expected of Muslims owing to the fact that this year's Ramadan will be different because of the deadly coronavirus which is ravaging the entire world?
Of course, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Of course, this year's Ramadan is going to be different from other Ramadan because mosques are closed, even Holy Kaaba are closed. People or all Muslims and non-Muslim are closed down in their homes. So definitely this Ramadan, this 2020 Ramadan is going to be different from all the Ramadan in previous years. So in this difference, we are expecting from the Muslim faithful to use this opportunity because we can see it as opportunity. As they used to say, in every calamity there is a blessing. This is a saying of pious predecessors, that in every calamity there is a blessing. But how to use this, how to utilize this opportunity is according to you as a person, as according to you as you see this opportunity. As Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Holy Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah chapter 2:16 that وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ وَعَسَىٰ أَن تُحِبُّوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ شَرٌ لَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. It may be you think about something, you dislike it, but it turns to be high blessing for you. And in other way, you can love something, but it turns to you as calamity for you. So let us use this opportunity of this Ramadan to be a special Ramadan that we have ever had in our life.
All right, Ustaz, now there are rites and traditions associated with the month of Ramadan, but the social distancing being advised will make it practically impossible for Muslims to come together to perform such acts of worship. Now, how can Muslims individually derive or make maximum use of this period to derive the blessings of the month?
Yes, in this, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us as human beings to know how to derive opportunity, how to use the opportunity. As this lockdown, I see, as I said, it is blessings. So you can go back to your house to observe all the voluntary prayers, including compulsory prayers, you and your family. this opportunity can make you to be very sincere, because maybe if you are in the congregation, maybe there is a show off. If you go to Umrah, maybe there is a show off. But if you are alone in your house, maybe there is a tendency of sincerity. In this sincerity, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept your ibadah. Even the sincerity is according to is the first condition of accepting ibadah. So my fellow brothers, Muslim brothers and sisters, let us use this opportunity, this Ramadan, to be in our house, to pray, to make supplications, to do all acts of ibadah in our family with the full sincerity, without any show off. So this is an opportunity we can use, maybe even without going to mosques for the congregational prayers and supplications.
We thank you very much for your comments. That was Dr. BASHIR Abdullahi Ismail. He's a lecturer with the University of Abuja. Moving on to other news now. Muslim faithful have been enjoined to use the holy month of Ramadan to seek God's divine intervention for the ravaging coronavirus pandemic. Though India has a compilation of messages from some notable Nigerians.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Ramadan, the ninth month of the Islamic calendar, is observed by Muslim faithful with fasting as one of the 5 pillars of Islam. For the Senate President ABDULLAHI, this year's Ramadan came at a most unusual time when mankind is contending with an existential threat in the form of the deadly COVID-19 that has shut down the economy and entire social life throughout the world. While urging Muslims to abide by the stipulated guidelines, the Senate President assured them of the government intervention to their plight. The Speaker, House of Representatives Femi Gbajabiamila, has also congratulated Muslims on the peaceful entry into the month of Ramadan, describing the period as a time of sober reflection and a time to get closer to the Supreme Creator. The Speaker encouraged them to be their brother's keeper, including non-Muslims among them, adding that Muslims should pray for peace, progress and unity of the country, as well as an end to the coronavirus pandemic. Similarly, the chairman North Central Governors Forum and Niger State Governor Abubakar Sani Bello encouraged Muslims to pray for peace and end to the coronavirus pandemic. Governor Sani Bello reminded them on the need to show empathy, piety, alms given to the less privileged and most vulnerable without discrimination. The All Progressives Congress APC has also felicitated with Muslim Ummah on the sighting of the moon and commencement of the Ramadan fast. The APC says while government continue to scale up on the palliatives to support the various segments of the society, it is important for the people to pull themselves along during this period. In the same vein, the People's Democratic Party (PDP) has urged Nigerians to use the period of Ramadan to pray fervently for the nation, as well as instill acts of self-restraint as commanded by the teachings of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. In Abuja, doing Dia NTA News.
And away from Ramadan, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 applauds the appointment of President Buhari as champion of the COVID-19 fight in the West African sub-region. Chairman of the task force, Boss Mustapha, says it must now factor the sub-region into its plans and activities to support the president in his new role.
This is a monumental recognition for the leadership role of our president and an endorsement of the direction we are headed in our national response. The summit also set up ministerial coordination committees on health, finance, and transportation to coordinate regional efforts under the supervision of the champion.
He said the Federal Ministry of Health and health sector professional bodies have signed a memorandum of understanding for various allowances and other incentives, details of which will be unveiled soon.
The number of functional laboratories in the country. However, we need to meanwhile improve surveillance, sample collection strategy, and transport logistics to laboratories, and also reduce the turnaround time for tests.
It's a difficult journey, but we also know that we will eventually exit this stage and we start our normal lives. But that stage is still a while to come. And I ask for your endurance, your support, your patience.
You're watching the news on NTA International, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital city. Time now for a short break. Stay with us.
Make your home the place to be with GoTV's super cool kids channels.
That sounds fun.
From funky friends that'll keep even the little ones busy.
All right, everybody, let's do this!
To learn as you watch educational shows for curious young minds.
You can do some amazing things.
There's plenty for everyone. Tune in to our kids shows and get everything you need to keep the kids entertained and learning the fun way. GoTV, live it, love it.
NTA International News. Africa as it is.
Thank you for staying with us. More stories on COVID-19. Nigerians applaud the appointment of President Buhari as the champion of COVID-19 response in the ECOWAS sub-region. Let's now join Adepola Buxlin-Sunday for this and other updates on coronavirus pandemic.
The ECOWAS sub-region has 6,183 confirmed cases, 158 deaths and 1,814 recoveries. Out of this number, Nigeria accounts for 981 cases, 197 recoveries and 31 deaths. The appointment of President Buhari as the champion of the fight against coronavirus in the ECOWAS sub-region is attributed to the success of efforts towards curtailing COVID-19 in the country and Nigeria's big brother roles in the sub-region.
So the president was quite in order, and I believe that if his speech and his recommendations are strictly adhered to by his brother presidents from the West African sub-region, we would be able to have minimal impact, negative minimal impact of this COVID-19. And it is quite important for all the countries, 15 countries, to start thinking about what are the opportunities even within this period of sadness, this period of death, this period of pandemic, because you can still make something pleasant out of it.
Meanwhile, as at 11:30 p.m. 23rd April Nigerian time, the breakdown of confirmed cases in Nigeria shows 78 in Lagos, 14 in the Federal Capital Territory, 5 in Ogun, 4 in Gombe, 3 in Borno, 2 in Akwa Ibom, 1 each in Kwara and Plateau states. Going global, tally from Johns Hopkins University at about 6:50 p.m. local time shows that 2,761,967 persons have been infected worldwide, out of which 193,217 have died, while 763,017 patients have recovered. I am Adebola Brooksland Sunday. Thanks for your time.
Many thanks, Adebola. And in other stories, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres says multilateralism is about confronting shared threats like COVID-19 and seizing opportunities together. The United Nations Secretary General said this in a message to mark this year's International Day of Multilateralism and Diplomacy for Peace. He asks people of every race to do all they can to save lives and ease economic and social devastation to build a healthy, equitable, peaceful and more sustainable future for all.
and mobilize investments in education, health systems, social protection, and resilience. This is the biggest international challenge since the Second World War. Yet, even before this test, the world was facing other profound transnational perils, climate change above all. But multilateralism is not only a matter of confronting shared threats, it's also seizing common opportunities. We now have the opportunity to build back better than in the past, aiming at inclusive and sustainable economies and societies. It's not enough to proclaim the virtues of multilateralism. We must continue to show its added value. International cooperation must adapt to changing times.
The United Nations Secretary General there, Antonio Guterres, talking about multilateralism. Now, the Federal Capital Territory Administration will invoke relevant laws that enables it to mandatorily evacuate recalcitrant COVID-19 patients to treatment centers. This was one of the decisions reached after a meeting of the F.C.T COVID-19 Emergency Response Team and the F.C.T management. Shuaibu Unoze Yakubu reports that the decision is to contain the spread of the virus in the territory.
The submissions by the F.C.T Emergency Response Team that some COVID-19 positive individuals refuse to go to treatment centers but prefer to receive medication at home. F.C.T Minister Muhammad Musa Bello expressed dissatisfaction with this development. He disclosed that existing laws will be used to force such persons to go to treatment centers, explaining that their staying at home will pose great risk not just to their families, but also to their immediate communities, especially now that F.C.T is witnessing community transmission of the virus. The meeting also resolved that massive testing will be carried out in areas where community transmission has been established, including Mabushi, Gishiri, and Utako communities. Residents are, however, advised to always use face masks while in public. The minister thanked all frontline workers in the fight against coronavirus and solicited for cooperation of residents by adhering to all laid-down measures, which include social distancing, constant hand-washing, and observing stay-at-home directive. So far, the F.C.T administration has engaged 263 staff, comprising 66 doctors, 103 nurses, 9 pharmacists, 15 laboratory scientists, and 70 other essential workers trained, while 337 others are slated for ongoing training, which is in batches. Shuaibu Onoze Yakubu, NTA News.
Meanwhile, in furtherance of the work of the Economic Sustainability Committee, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has met with a group of ministers who were directed by the President to jointly develop a comprehensive policy for a Nigerian economic functioning with COVID-19. President Muhammadu Buhari has asked the Economic Sustainability Committee to support the said ministers in executing the directive. The Vice President proceeded with the Ministers of Industry, Trade and Investment, Science and Technology, Transportation, Aviation, Interior, Health, Works and Housing, Labour and Employment and Education, and the work of coordinating the efforts in order to produce a comprehensive economic sustainability plan that will turn the current economic challenges into opportunities for the Nigerian people, as envisioned by the President. Lalo Akonde, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Office of the Vice President, said by next week, the Economic Sustainability Committee will also be meeting with the Presidential Economic Advisory Council ahead of the completion and submission of its reports to the President. In the meantime, the National Judicial Council, under the chairmanship of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Ibrahim Mohammed, has instituted a 10-man committee to on court sittings. This was at its 91st meeting held online on 22nd and 23rd of April. The committee, which has Justice Olabode Rhodes Vivo as its chairman, is to come up with urgent but practical strategic measures to ensure courts continue to function despite the lockdown and COVID-19 challenges. Its terms of reference include guidelines or template for implementation to explore possible areas of collaboration between the judiciary and the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation. The committee has 14 days to submit its reports. The council also recommends the compulsory retirement of Justice Francis Chukwuma Abusi, acting president, Customary Court of Appeal, Imo State, and Justice Aliu Musa Liman of Bauchi State, High Court of Justice, with immediate effect. Now, the United States government has described the late Chief of Staff of the President, Malam Abakari, as a dedicated public servant and respected interlocutor for the American government. In a condolence message to President Muhammadu Buhari, the Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Tibo Nagy, eulogized the important role played by Akari in the repatriation of over $300 million funds stolen by former head of state, Sani Abacha. The U.S. Assistant Secretary noted that the late Chief of Staff's vision was a reflection of his tireless championing of a solid and prosperous future for Nigeria, while commiserating with the government and people of Nigeria, as well as the Kari family on the loss. The U.S. government pledged to stand with Nigeria in the struggle against the coronavirus pandemic. The president also received condolence messages from the former Minister of Niger Delta, Usani Guru Sani, Kano-based businessman Alhaji Sabi Ubago, and the trade union leader Baturi Abdulaziz. And those are the stories that made the news at this time on NTA International. We thank you for your time. I am Lami Ali.
You can follow us on all our social media platforms: Facebook at NTA Network News, Instagram at NTA Network, Twitter